Hi everyone. So you can see that I've changed my location. So today that you guys have been so used to seeing me inside of my office all the time, so I thought I'd mix it up a little bit and do a little video outside now that the weather's turning to nice bright sunny weather out here, and enjoy a bit of time on the bike. So today we're talking about management theories again, and today we're going to talk about what is a relationship-based team. People ask me all the time the difference between the two categories, between what is a relationship-based team versus a task-based team. And it's a little bit of storytelling time. I'll talk a little bit about my younger Anthony days when I was young and starting my career at an early age and working in an office for the very first time. And one of the things was I always thought being a good worker was getting to work on time, not quickly turning on your computer, getting down to business and working very hard, eating your lunch at desk, and really not socializing much with coworkers, and then finishing the day at 5 o'clock and putting in a good day of hard work and not really giving time to get to know other people in the workplace. And that's really a task-based coworker, an employee that really just focuses on the job and gets the job done. When meetings start, they always focus on the agenda and get down to business, and they just do that as the primary focus, as part of their responsibility. And leaders can sometimes lead that way, where they focus all about the job and all about the work and not about the relationships in an office. And so let's talk about the concept of what is a relationship-based team now. So they're really about teams that really take care of each other. And another way of saying that is really that they support and encourage one another, they provide group maintenance, they add humor and levity, and they ease tensions with each other, and they just go the extra mile to take care of each other in the team. So what that meant for me is in the workplace is really starting to spend time getting to know other coworkers in the office, asking them for lunch, going for walks, and enjoying some time with them, and getting to know my coworkers personally and what makes them tick and why they're motivated to be there and why they make decisions the way they do, to really truly understand them a bit better. And that's what a relationship team is all about in organizational behavior. And that's something that's we can all start to focus in on, because it's so easy to focus on the job, work on the tasks, and get the job done. And so it's a really interesting study. What I also want to share is Project Aristotle, which I've talked about before, but Google, looked at what made teams tick, and they also understood that one of the fundamental reasons was that they were successful because they were all focused on relationships, building connections with each other, creating that psychological safety. And Google spent millions of dollars to understand this. And you don't have to spend millions to understand what makes good teams work. It's just spend some time getting to know each other. The problem is it's really hard to get to know other coworkers, especially when they're different from us culturally or different in terms of a background. And they grew up in a different country. They have a different language background, for example. They don't seem to have necessarily the same interests as you. So it's really hard to spend time with someone that you don't necessarily like or get to know, because they look completely or act completely differently from you too. But I'll share you an example is that relationship-based teams, and a personal example is that when you look at it, they work really well, because just imagine, your best friends, your best friend that that you can yell at and scream at, and then next morning, that they're going to still love you. And that's what we're trying to create in relationship-based teams, is teams that really care about each other so that they can have really healthy conflict and actually have conflict, because they know that it won't be taken the wrong way and it won't be taken personally. And that coworker will like you tomorrow, regardless of that conflict or not. So that's what we talk about. What is a relationship-based team? So how do you create organizations that have really strong relationships? So people ask me all the time in terms of what best to do to create that structure. And there's a lot of easy techniques to create strong relationships in teams. And the first, as a manager, is start sending signals that it's okay to have relationships. And the suggestion I have is, one technique I use all the time is using the first 10 minutes of a meeting to actually focus on asking people how their weekend was, what's going on in their lives, what's happening with their home renovations or their home purchase, etc., to really get to know them so that they feel like it's okay to talk about themselves in the workplace. And to do that well is actually have on the agenda the first 10 minutes scheduled as a check-in, so that everyone knows when they're reading the agenda in advance that that there will be plenty of time to talk about the relationships first and getting to know each other before you start working on the work itself. So that's the first signal that you're giving to your employees and your managers, that you need to focus on relationships first before you focus on the task. And that's how you build relationship-based teams, is giving those signals in the workplace that it's okay to talk about your personal life. Often the best other techniques that we can be using is scheduling lunch together. So I remember when I started my first big job at a large organization, like I would go around asking people, are you interested in going out for lunch? Especially those ones that I didn't know very well, so that I had a chance to go and get to know them a bit better. Or grab lunch, coffee, and go for a walk with people that I necessarily wouldn't normally work with. And so that's what I try to practice nowadays, is going for a walk with people that I don't necessarily work alongside on a regular basis, so that I get to know them. And with a lot of video calls, it's just scheduling time, a 10-minute break with someone that you normally don't work with. So I think that works really well to encouraging a relationship-based team where people really get to know each other well. So as a leader, when you're working on relationship-based teams, you can start with yourself. One of the things that I suggest you do is focus on being vulnerable, self-deprecating, introducing humor, making fun of yourself, talking about your personal life in the workplace. Show passion for others, and show passion that you care about the relationships that are existing in the workplace, because that's one of the best signals that you can give to the team, that it's okay to have relationships, and that's kind of the team norm that you're trying to introduce. And then also, I think it's also important to be tough on those who aren't focused on their relationships. Encourage them to be passionate about people, and encourage them to really care about their employees. Be tough on those employees that are just focused on the job and nothing else, because in the long run, if you want highly productive teams and high performing teams, it's important to work on the relationships as well. And the last thing I'll also mention in this is that some students also ask me, well, is it different across different cultures? And yes, that's true. Some teams look like they're only focused on the task, but they still focus on relationships too. So one of the things that we see on cultural studies is that when it comes to different analysis of different cultures on organizational behavior, is that when it comes to task-based teams, where teams just focus on the job, they still focus on the relationships later. For example, in Asia, where they might be highly focused on getting the job done during the day, at night after work, they'll make sure that they spend time on relationships by going out for a drink, socializing and having dinner together as well. So, and that's one thing that I also want to mention, is that all teams focus on relationships. Sometimes in the Western cultures, they focus on it at the front half of the meetings or the workplace, and some cultures will focus it at the very end of the day, and that's just the primary difference between cultures. So I hope that helps. I hope you find that interesting and you try out some of these techniques and let me know how it goes. And let me know if you actually prefer this kind of venue where I move around rather than sitting in my office and presenting each time. So I'll try to mix it up and make it a little bit more interesting. Thanks very much for watching, and talk to you guys soon. Really appreciate it.